The American Cordillera stretches from the most southern tip of the Americas along the Pacific coast and over the Central American Isthmus until it elevates almost the entirety of Mexico. But one region here quite literally sticks out from the rest. The flat Yucatán Peninsula opposes the hot and arid deserts of the central lands and wedges itself between the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. Not despite, but precisely because of this flatness, the peninsula is so different from its surroundings, holding fascinating lessons about nature and a scar that has drastically changed the fate of all living beings on the planet. In this video, we'll have a closer look at the unique environment of the Yucatán Peninsula and travel back in time to see how scientists have pieced together an important piece of Earth's past from findings in its jungles. Exploring Mexico with a bit of distance and having a topographical relief overlay turned on, the country is actually a lot more mountainous than is commonly thought. The Sierra Madre Occidental and Oriental are covering nearly the entire country, from east to west and north to south, except for this peculiar outcrop. The Yucatán Peninsula, on the most eastern tip of Mexico's bow, is its virtually only flat land next to the coastal strips. This peninsula is actually just a tip of a platform that lies mostly submerged in the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. This region has once constituted the seafloor as recent as about 10 million years in the past, and the remnants of this former marine ecosystem now define most of its geographical characteristics. The flat tableland is covered in a thick layer of sedimentary limestone, which stems from countless compressed corals and mussels that sank to the seafloor many million years ago. This type of rock is a quite soluble material when in contact with ever so slightly acidic substances. Therefore, when rainwater mixes with carbon dioxide, either from the atmosphere or through contact with organic material, the slightly increased pH is already enough to slowly melt through the limestone given enough time, creating openings in the rocky surface, resulting in vast cave systems and sinkholes across the peninsula. When examining these openings closer, it also becomes apparent why there are actually no rivers on Yucatán compared to many other tropical places in the world. Instead of carving beds in the surface, the water on, or better in, Yucatán Peninsula is dissolving its way through the upper layers, creating a dense underground network of streams, which are only noticeable on the surface when a sinkhole breaks through. When looking for surface waters, there are only very isolated lakes scattered around, which are typically the result of waterproof clay basins like Lake Chichén Canap. The thin but 30-kilometer long lake has no in or outflow of water, and its balance is entirely dependent on the interplay between rainfall and evaporation. Lying centrally within the Yucatán Peninsula, the lake is part of the border between Yucatan's two major ecoregions, with the Yucatán dry forest covering the north, while the Yucatán and Belize moist forests cover the southern section. These names can be a bit misleading though, since they do not refer to the region's precipitation. The dry and moist forests both receive around 1,200 millimeters of rain per year. Instead, the difference comes from climate seasonality and different moisture retention of the soil. In the north, the longer dry periods and subsequently more intense but shorter wet periods, coupled with a thinner and more permeable soil layer, only allow drought-resistant plants to survive, while the moist forests in the south are a bit more forgiving, with more evenly distributed wet and dry seasons, and a thicker soil layer, which better retains the moisture in the system. The coast around the moist forest is characterized by broad-rounded cliffs that slowly transition into the white sandy beaches for which Yucatán is best known for, and where over 10 million tourists arrive annually. Most of these are international travelers coming from the US, Canada or Colombia. And while traveling is a beautiful thing, not having access to the comforts of your own home can have some uncomfortable side effects as well. Using public Wi-Fi can leave you and your data vulnerable to people with malicious intent. Or when you want to rest after a long day of exploring, your favorite shows may be geo-blocked in your current location. This is where today's sponsor Surfshark comes to the aid, which is a VPN that allows you to change your IP address to places all over the world. This allows you to access Netflix and other streaming services, making them think you're still in your home country. As an expat myself, I use it regularly to watch the news from my home country, since they would be otherwise geo-blocked, or I use it to get better deals on flights and other online shopping just by shuffling my location around. You can now get all these benefits plus a dozen more tools and features with the code FactSpark. Go to surfshark.deals/FactSpark, which now gives you 4 months for free. And if you don't like it, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no reason to worry. Check the link in the description for more info and give Surfshark a try. And now back to the Yucatán Peninsula, where millions of tourists enjoy the many sights it has to offer. Next to the pristine beaches of Cancun, the inner land also attracts millions of tourists with its countless flooded caverns and sinkholes. Especially in the north, the density of these sinkholes suddenly increases. And when you zoom out far enough, a peculiar pattern emerges, which allows you to have a glimpse at one of Earth's most violent periods. The neat circular pattern was first discovered during a routine survey in the search for petroleum in the Caribbean Sea. The scientists noticed abnormalities in the magnetic field, radiating out of a central point laying just a few kilometers off of the coast of Yucatan. At the same time, in the 1970s and 80s, scientists all over the world found increased iridium concentrations in a geological layer which is estimated to coincide with the extinction of the dinosaurs. Iridium is one of the rarest metals in Earth's crust, since nearly all of it got pulled into Earth's core during the planet's creation. Yet it is a lot more common in extraterrestrial objects like asteroids. When shocked quartz and tektites, two rock types that require incredible pressure and heat to be created, were also found around the northern shores of Yucatan. The puzzle pieces were slowly falling together until Luis and Walter Alvarez published the Alvarez hypothesis. According to this theory, a roughly 15-kilometer wide asteroid struck what is today northern Yucatan at speeds of around 20 kilometers per second, pulverizing the upper 30 kilometers of Earth's surface and leaving behind an impact crater measuring approximately 150 kilometers in diameter. This impact crater is what can be seen in the high concentrations of sea notes that we looked at earlier, and the impact marked the end of the reign of the dinosaurs, and with that, also the end of the almost 200 million year long Mesozoic era, throwing Earth into the Cenozoic era, in which we are currently living. Immediately after the impact, gigantic tsunamis eradicated all life near the Atlantic shores. The impact kicked off an earthquake with a magnitude of 10.3 on the Richter scale, and the pulverized material from the impact was expelled into the atmosphere, throwing Earth into a decades-long global winter, halting photosynthesis and plankton growth, and leading to an ecological collapse starting from the bottom of the food chain. It is estimated that 75% of all species that have roamed Earth's surface and the sea have gone extinct in the years following the impact, among them all non-avian dinosaurs, and virtually all creatures with a body weight above 25 kilograms or 50 pounds. The impact crater has been named after the city Chicxulub, which lies near the center, and these scientists working on the hypothesis actually deliberately chose this hard-to-spell and hard-to-pronounce name to throw a curveball at NASA and the rest of the scientific community, which were ridiculing them during their research. Since the turn of the era, the asteroid hasn't been the only thing that has devastated the Yucatan Peninsula. The warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, paired with the flat Yucatan Plateau in front of the shore and prevailing wind patterns of the region, regularly unleash devastating cyclones onto the land. In the past 100 years, 112 tropical storms and 18 major hurricane events have crossed paths with Yucatan, bringing death and destruction with it. The northeastern tip of Yucatan is especially exposed to the hurricane winds, where the fragile ecosystem regularly gets flattened by storms. While hurricanes have a disruptive effect on the biodiversity in the short term, they also play a big role in the ecological dynamics and evolutionary trajectories of ecosystems over longer timescales, playing a part in the immense diversity of species found across Yucatan. Mexico as a whole is part of the Megadiverse Countries Club, joining 16 other nations that harbor most of the world's flora and fauna. Particularly in the categories of reptile and cactus species, Mexico is a world leader, and in 2002 they even founded their own group of so-called like-minded megadiverse countries that also takes the wealth of traditional knowledge about the country's nature and biodiversity into account. The richness of species today is mostly threatened by extensive cattle farming all over Yucatan, which eradicates the primary forests. But the tourism boom of the last 50 years, together with the needed infrastructure to accommodate all of these people, has also drastically transformed the face of the peninsula. The fact that the resort town of Cancun is one of the most popular tourist destinations on the American continent was not an accident or coincidence, but instead the product of a carefully calculated plan by the Mexican government. In the 1970s, a sophisticated computer model was created, which carefully evaluated various factors like temperatures, insect populations, available labor force, storm patterns, travel times, humidity, and many more, to mathematically evaluate the best location for Mexico to construct the perfect beach resort. The product of this campaign was the city of Cancun, which has since grown to a city of almost 1 million people to accommodate the ever-increasing number of tourists. Extensive infrastructure projects like the almost 1,000-mile-long Maya train are being developed, which according to many environmental organizations poses a serious threat to the already fragile ecosystems of Yucatan. important sites and cenotes sacred to the still strongly present Mayan population, which account for roughly half of all people living on the peninsula, are being at threat of being destroyed or overrun. At the same time, however, it makes the cultural heritage more available to tourists and locals alike, and the boost in tourism can possibly help the long-term marginalized groups of Yucatan. I hope you enjoyed this overview of one of the most fascinating and picturesque peninsulas in the world. If you want to see more mini-documentaries about the most interesting regions of our planet, be sure to subscribe. And thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Keep your data secure and access streaming libraries from all over the world with my code FactSpark. Check my link in the description to get 4 months for free, and if you change your mind, they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you want to learn more about Mexico's neighbors to the south, I can recommend this video, exploring the Central American countries, or watch what YouTube thinks is best for you here. See you in the next one. Cheers.